Hey, what's going on, fuckers? Welcome to Respawning Fire RAFter Dark. Is that what this is called?
RAFter
Uh,
Dark, episode 4.
I don't. It's the show that's not supposed to be about video games, even though sometimes Joel will bring up a video game just to spite us. It doesn't matter to him. This episode is, by the way, well, Joel Campos is here.
Yeah, I'm
Oh,
here and I'm
wrong
not
way.
popping.
No poppers for Joel, and we also have Alex Kozina, who does have poppers.
I had a popper, but I finished it all during the barf review that we just recorded for The Outer Worlds, so nothing left.
I'll have to ask somebody how many poppers you're allowed to take an hour. I feel like you can't take too many, like you might overdose, but I don't know if that's actually how that product works or not. On this After Dark, Kozi's going to talk about Japan. So I don't have anything else. Don't ask me any other questions. Not going to happen.
I am going to be here talking about ye olde Japan. I just realized, Adam, that as you said that my screen sharing window in OBS is actually not set up to accommodate the fact that Joel is here instead of Chad, because Chad got subsumed by the void. It's a big old story. You can go and listen to our barf review of The Outer Worlds if you want to get the full scoop on exactly what happened there. So let me just vamp for a little bit.
This man doing surgery on the fly.
To do some surgery on the fly, as Adam just said. How's your dinner tonight, Adam? Good dinner?
No,
Nice and warm?
Talked about it on the barf review. They gave me my food cold, which is not great. I like the place. It's a good restaurant, but I just don't understand why the food was basically just came out of the refrigerator. I don't understand how they did that. It wasn't even like room temp. It was colder than room temp. You know what I'm saying? So the guy must have the AC on.
And the surgery is done, which means that we can segue into my Japan photos. So if you listen back to episode, I believe it was 392 of Respawning Fire, on that particular episode, I was like, you know what? I have a lot of photos for my trip to Japan. I'm just going to show you exclusively the video game themed photos that have something to do with gaming or what have you. For this particular collection that I have prepared today, it is all exclusively photos about non-video game related things. So without further ado, let's go ahead and let's jump right in. To start things off, I just want to start with a bit of a nice scene here of me and Mama Kozi in front of some cherry blossoms. I believe this was at the Tokyo Imperial Gardens during our trip. Basically, our trip, we started in Tokyo, and then eventually we took a Shinkansen bullet train to Kyoto, and then from there we went to Osaka, and that rounded out our trip. I will say, by and large, this trip was cold, wet, and occasionally very windy. Weather temperatures were not great throughout the trip. So you see me here wearing a blue jacket. I was fully prepared and ready to wear a much nicer shirt on this day and on most days of the trip, but I generally had to dress warm because the weather was not very agreeable. But on this particular day, we did manage to see some cool little cherry blossoms. Of course, if you guys want to interrupt at any point, ask any questions, by all means, feel free to do so, and I will answer to the best of my ability. But moving on. So, my mom, the kind of big thing that she got out of this trip is my mom is an architect, and she's somebody who definitely had very much a fondness and appreciation for a lot of the architecture of Tokyo, Kyoto, Japan as a whole. And so she made sure that we would go and visit a bunch of, major architectural buildings throughout the country. What you're looking at right here is the Tokyo International Forum, which is basically a multi-purpose exhibition center that was located near Tokyo Station. I believe we visited this on our second day in the country, or second day, or it might have even been the first. Regardless, she was very much into visiting these sorts of cool structures, and I indulged her. And I will say, these places pretty cool, even to someone like me who is not an architect. This would have been on our second full day of Japan. A major tourist destination in Tokyo is Sensoji Temple. which is what you're looking at right here. It's an ancient Buddhist temple in the Asakusa neighborhood of Tokyo. It's Tokyo's oldest established temple and basically one of its most significant. It is dedicated to Kannon, spelt Kannon, who is the Bodhisattva of compassion. I don't
Cozy,
believe.
got a question for you.
Yes.
Or
Yes.
actually, just actually pointed at Joel, not Cozy, so Cozy can stop. When you see a crowd of this side, Joel, I guess you live in a big metropolitan city. When you see the street like shoulder to shoulder, how does that make you feel about thinking that's what it's going to be the whole day?
I don't know. Like I've been to a lot of music festivals and stuff, so I feel like I'd be more used to it than probably the normal person.
Yeah, I don't go to music festivals. I go to sports games, which are big arenas with a lot of people, but you're not packed in unless you're all leaving at the exact same time, or a convention, which is not shoulder to shoulder. So it's interesting to see that many people.
I
Look at
will
this one
say,
bald man as well, by the way. This bald white guy right here.
yeah, a
Ain't
lot
no
of
way.
weird people I caught on photo. I will say, just commenting on the amount of people, like in this particular photo and in one coming up in just a bit, like these two particular areas were some of the more touristy areas that we visited during our time in Japan. We definitely tried to vary it up a little bit here and there. So like we definitely are not people that love crowds either. We definitely try to avoid them. But on these two particular days, we were like, we should probably, hit up the sites, hit up the big places. Moving on. So this right here is called the Asahi Beer Hall. It is one of the buildings of Asahi Brewery's headquarters. The like little flame like thingy on top. Here's a better
That
photo
mac
of the
and
building.
cheese? Is that
It
the Kraft
is
mac and cheese building?
close. It is called the Asahi Flame. It is said to represent both the burning heart of Asahi beer and a frothy head. Colloquially, the Asahi Flame is sometimes referred to as the Golden Turd. And I'd imagine there's a certain politician we can probably imagine it
You
looking
gonna
like
say the
as
name?
well. Oh my God, how did I forget his name? Trump. Anyways, I was like, the guy's like fucking, you can't possibly escape him nowadays. Moving on. Speaking of places with big crowds, this was Ueno Park, another very popular tourist destination in Japan during the springtime because of its many cherry blossoms. This is a fun little stroll. And next up, hope you like videos because I got a video of Shibuya Crossing at night as seen in games like Persona 5 and many a JRPG. Oh, and there's my mom getting photobombed. She didn't realize that she was going to be on camera.
She did not look happy that you, you did that to her.
No, she was totally fine with it. So this right here is Don Quixote. This is a discount store chain native to Japan. Provides all sorts of products, lots of groceries, lots of snacks, electronics, clothing. These places are lovely to visit, but they're kind of strict about taking photos inside. So I didn't take a lot of photos inside. They're also like pretty unique in that they tend to be 24 hours or even longer. Wait a minute, even longer. What am I saying? 24 hours is as long as you can go. Point is, these places are open late and a lot of fun, and they have all sorts of interesting and unique products, such as Kit Kat flavored cereal. Japan loves Kit Kats. Japan has so many different varieties of Kit Kat flavors on sale. This one really confused me though because like Japan doesn't eat cereal. Like people do not have cereal for breakfast in Japan. But I guess their love of Kit Kats transcended it so long and hard that they gotta have Kit Kat cereal. I think it's probably a product of Spain because there's actually Spanish text on the box.
Interesting thing that you left out is that right next
Yes.
to that, there's a combo pack of fruit by the foot and gushers in one pack. I don't know why you didn't focus on
Oh
those.
shit. I didn't. Yeah, I didn't even notice that. There is totally. Wow. Wowie zowie. Moving on. This was our trip to Yokohama. This would have been about day tree of the trip. Sometimes those th sounds are hard to pronounce. This is sort of the skyline of the Yokohama waterfront. This whole area is called the Yokohama Minato Mirai area. While I was in Yokohama, like many other days on our trip, it was cold and wet and rainy, and so we took every opportunity we could possibly take to duck inside and shelter from the cold. And so one of the things that we did is we actually went and visited the Cup Noodles Museum, which, to be honest, going into it, I was like, this is probably going to be very gimmicky, but I was actually pleasantly surprised by the Cup Noodles Museum. They had a big exhibit about the creators of cup noodles. They had like a little 3D animated movie talking about how he went about creating it. And I found it like sappy, but also weirdly inspirational because the thing they really focused on was how he was, I want to say like 48 when he invented instant ramen, and then like 61 when he invented like cup noodles in the form we know them as today. Like the whole kind of theme of the exhibit was very much like, you don't got to worry if you're like an old person. You can still be creative and make a change in this world, which I thought was very, very
It's an
fun.
interesting message. Uh, that's cool. I mean, you never think about it, but it's like, yeah, somebody had to invent that idea. Putting
Yeah.
fucking freeze dried, not freeze dried, but dried stuff in a cup and you put water in it. It tastes good.
And the museum, to its credit, does a good job of actually like explaining how that works on like a, like a fourth grader level so anyone can understand it. So the following day, this would have been day 4. This actually was April 1st, which unfortunately Japan doesn't really observe April 1st, so there weren't a lot of tricks and guffaws to be had. But what there was to be had is we went and visited Ginza, which is a very kind of high-end, luxurious shopping district within Tokyo. And then later that afternoon, we visited, I believe this was Ikebukuro, which is like another neighborhood located more in the north of Tokyo. This was a very cold, wet, and rainy day, as you can see by the ground, which is very wet in this particular photograph. But what was even wetter than these two locations?
If you show a picture of a woman, okay, no, okay.
No, not, I mean, it's not a woman, but get ready for this. This is a public restroom called Weetopia. Like literally, they're like you think about public restrooms, they don't typically have names. In Japan, they're like, no, our public restrooms have names. They are like specific designated historic locations, and this one is called Weetopia, spelt W-E with only one E, but
Let's say Nintendo might have a lawsuit. Watch out.
they know what they're doing. And so this is another version of Weetopia. I hope the person in the center of the yeah, public restroom wasn't annoyed by me taking a photo of him dead center.
Oh, I'm
Uh,
sure he loved it.
I'm sure he's like, yeah, oh man, just take a photo of me in Weetopia. I love it. And then directly underneath Weetopia, to get underneath the railway tracks that you can see in the background, we walked along Wee Road. Wee Road. It definitely felt like we were stepping in some wee because it was really,
Yeah,
really
piss
cold
road.
and wet.
That's what they're saying. It's a piss road.
Yeah. Certainly an interesting place to be had. So I want to just stop right here. So I believe this is in Harajuku on day 4 or 5. Something that's really big in Japan is they're really big into these 3D billboards that like give the impression of a three-dimensional image that's moving around. And so I saw this particular billboard and I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. You have a little whale that's going around doing its thing, flying through
Yeah.
space.
The other ones, well, the one that I noticed the most of is was it the Times Square one where it's got all like the video game advertisements and movie things in
Right.
it. Yeah, yeah,
Right.
those are pretty cool. Do they only
Uh,
work from one angle though? Is my question. Like I feel like if you're not looking at that exact position, the 3D doesn't work.
you're definitely correct that they definitely only work from that one particular angle, which I believe I was sort of, I don't know if I was standing in the middle of the street when I took this. No, cars are passing, so I was probably on the sidewalk.
Going through you.
Anyways, so this was an art installation called Big Cat Bang. That is actually what it was called. I'll just go ahead here just to show you that I'm not kidding. Big Cat Bang from Kenji Inoue. basically, this was at a shopping mall called Ginza 6 back in Ginza to celebrate the 7th anniversary of its opening. Basically, features two prominent astronauts, a pair of cats that are on board a vessel that is reminiscent of a piece called Tower of the Sun from a famous Japanese artist called Taro Okamoto. This is just a fun little exhibit that we saw that we figured we would take a few pictures of. It's funny, but also there is something very kind of gnarly and kind of unsettling about it. If you zoom in on the spaceship, you can see like a bunch of little like cat heads that are like hooked up to some sort of device. Pretty gnarly. So
I will say though, so far, because we did this on the normal Respawn Aim Fire where you went through all the video game stuff. This is non-video gaming stuff. I would say the last like 5 or 6 of your slides are actually pretty horny. Like Big Cat Bang and the Wii Road and the
yeah, Wetopia,
you're you're treading on thin ice here,
the
Kozi.
whales flying through space. Well, it's good that we're not live streaming this to Twitch because we'd probably get taken down real quick. Speaking of getting taken down real quick, this right here, it's a little hard to see, so I'll zoom in a little bit. Is none other than big old James J. Godzilla himself, taking down this movie theater. This was in Shinjuku. And the reason why I went to Shinjuku is because I have a lot of friends that are huge fans of the Yakuza series. And it's like, well, I got to go and see the big old gate that you often see in the Yakuza games. In the Yakuza games, this particular area is known as Kamurocho, but the actual name of the neighborhood in real life is Kabukicho. And so they were
Two
very
things.
happy.
I like that
Yes.
Paddington was playing. Shout out to Paddington. Also, whenever you try to say Godzilla's Christian name, this is a thing that some of our audience will understand. What? It, so I saw somebody do a skeet earlier today, right?
Mm-hmm.
And showing Greg Miller's Wikipedia
Oh,
page. Oh, careful. Um, Greg's Greg's middle name is Meredith or Merriweather.
no.
What's that about? It must be a joke, but like, why is it on his Wikipedia
it,
page? It isn't.
it was a joke. His actual Christian middle name is like something much more mundane, like
James. It
James.
says
Yeah,
James/Merriweather, and I'm like, where's the Merriweather from? I don't remember
I
this
have
joke.
no clue. No clue. Moving right along, we've been going through the first 5 days of my trip in Tokyo, Joel, and I was showing off the movie theater in
Godzilla? Is that Godzilla?
Shinjuku. It is Godzilla, and there is a neighborhood in Tokyo called Kabukicho. And there's this very iconic gate that's featured in the Yakuza series. So I took a couple of photos of it as well for the kids to
Nice.
enjoy online. Moving on. So when I was in
Ooh.
Japan, like I tried to eat Japanese food as much as I could here and there, but of course I had to try a few international chains and see what unique products they had to offer in the land of the rising sun. This is a sakura and strawberry McDonald's hand pie. And I thought it was okay. I thought it was not the best thing ever, not the worst thing ever. I got to be honest, the burgers are the thing about the burgers at Japanese McDonald's is you're like, oh man, this is going to be totally exotic and weird. They have eggs on their burgers. This is going to be just a truly foreign experience. And then you bite into it and it's like, they have eggs and teriyaki sauce, but otherwise it's basically exactly the same as at home, which I suppose is a plus if you're like, I'm really homesick and I really want the taste of McDonald's. But in general, it was a little disappointing.
Cozy, I do have a question. So
Yes.
when we were in Boston last year for PAX,
Yeah.
you kept bringing up the fact that you wanted to go to Costco
Yes.
for the food court, right? You wanted to try the chicken bake.
Hmm.
Why did you not go to the Costco in Japan and try the weird stuff they got in their food court?
Maybe you should stick around and see where this goes.
Oh my god, Cozy, did you actually? Let's go. I want to hear about the Aussie meat pie or beef pie and the clam chowder soup at the Costco food court.
Let's move right along. You might need to sit tight for a little bit, but I assure you, we will eventually get to some good stuff. So, This is on one of our later days when we were in Tokyo. This particular area is called Odaiba. It's basically a giant man made island in Tokyo Bay. It was originally a bunch of smaller islands that in the 1980s were grouped together into one big super island. They had these ambitious plans of like, we're going to turn this man-made island to a new downtown supercenter for the city of Tokyo. Ended up never materializing after the Japanese economic bubble burst in the 1980s, or I believe it was the early 90s. Anyways, but later on in the second half of the 90s, they built a bunch of hotels, shopping malls, and fun entertainment centers and whatnot in Odaiba, which turned it into a fun little tourist attraction. They also inexplicably built a mini Statue of Liberty replica around here. Not really sure what that's about. This right here is one of the other major buildings of the Odaiba area. This is the Fuji TV building. It is the headquarters of the Fuji TV Corporation, which is Japan's biggest private nationwide TV companies. It has like a bunch of like anime related exhibits. You can also see like certain programs being taped live. It has this futuristic observation deck that is even located in this sphere over here that you can enter into. Pretty cool time. This is me and Mama Kozi going up the elevator to get into the upper floor of the building, which you can see right here. Something that was also located in Odaiba was a giant Gundam statue. Now, this is not
Oh yeah.
the giant Gundam statue that is able to move around a little bit. I believe that that one was in Yokohama and is currently no longer in operation, but it
Yeah.
was still
I thought
pretty.
they took it down, right?
Yeah, that particular Gundam statue doesn't not currently in operation, but this one, which was near the Diver City Mall in Odaiba, was still ready to be found. So something that's really cool about Odaiba is they have these monorails that you could use to get around, and you can actually go to the front of the monorail and pretend that you're the conductor at the front and treat it almost like a roller coaster. So I took a fun little video when I had the chance to. And as you've probably seen out of the upper right corner, there's a big old inverse pyramid building. That building is Tokyo Big Sight. This is a big ass convention center. Many years ago, in early 2017, I actually attended. I believe it was like the Nintendo Switch 2, not launch event, but like an early preview event for
The
the.
Switch 2?
The
No,
Switch 2?
I
Oh
I
my god.
I
Cozy, you've
realized
been
my
knowing about
mistake.
this whole time?
Yeah, I'm a time traveler. No, it was the original Switch. It was a preview event for the original Switch, which I actually got into for free, which is pretty crazy. But this particular convention center also hosts other big conventions like Comic-Con, which is like a big like anime and manga convention that happens here twice a year as well. So pretty cool. And so from here, I'll just pause and go back real quick. I believe that was our final day in Tokyo, which meant that we were onto a Shinkansen, which is a bullet train, to go to Kyoto the following day. As you can imagine, these things move pretty fast. And so I took a photo to kind of chronicle what it was like
We're
to.
talking like 120?
We're talking real super duper fast. I don't know a number off the top of my head.
What I want to know is why don't we have bullet trains in the US? I
I don't
feel like
know.
we should just do it. Imagine going from like Chicago to Indianapolis in an hour, right? Like that's a 3.5 hour drive usually. Doing that
Yeah.
in an hour would be insane.
I was going to say, Elon Musk, he seems like the kind of person that could get it done. You should ask him.
Was he talking about? I feel like he was talking about that at one point to like do a light rail or something through the US. I don't remember. Somebody was talking about it.
Anyways, me and mom, I made a point ahead of time of making sure that the seats that we would get on the Shinkansen would allow us to easily view Mount Fuji from our trip across the country. And see Mount Fuji we did, although it was covered a little bit by some cloudy weather.
How
This
long of a train ride was that?
this was, I believe it was like about 2.5 hours.
And where'd you go from where to where?
From Tokyo to Kyoto. Now, it is worth pointing out we did get a slightly like we had the option of getting an even shorter train ride, but I think we chose to get a slightly longer one because basically the timing of it all with us being able to check into our hotel in Kyoto, we were like, it's better if we can be in the train for longer because then that means we don't have to wait as long to check in. We could have gotten one that was like 2 hours, or I think slightly even less than that if we wanted
That's
to.
crazy. So, for reference, Adam, that's a 6-hour drive cut down to 2 hours because
Cut
he
down to
took this
2.
train.
Oh, dang, that means the trip to Indianapolis would only be from Chicago be like 30 minutes.
Yeah, like 40 minutes probably.
Ooh,
40,
that's
45
nice.
minutes.
That's not bad.
I don't like this photo as much, but this particular photo, which I took, I think is a better view of Mount Fuji. Unfortunately, there's a telephone pole that's partially blocking your view, but just to kind of give you an example of what the mountain looks like on a given day. And so, yeah, we landed in Kyoto. We ended up kind of spending the rest of the day just sort of resting around because we were pretty tired. That right there is Kyoto Tower. It's not a particularly tall tower, but it looks kind of cool when it's lit up at night. So the thing about Kyoto is there are a lot of temples and a lot of shrines to visit in Kyoto. I couldn't possibly share images of all of them because there are way too many. This particular temple was, I'm just checking my notes real here, the Higashi Honganji Temple. It's one of the more popular temples in Kyoto, and say basically big center for Buddhism in the city. In this particular temple, I actually was able to uh, climb up this pagoda. I think I have a better photo of it here. There we go. And I actually got a little bit of a view from up above. Unfortunately, they had this chain link fence in place to kind of prevent people from jumping out, but it was kind of nice to have a little bit of a view from up above. They actually had a vegan food truck festival happening in front of the temple, which
Mm.
is cool and unusual because Japan, they're not really, I don't really associate Japan as being a country that's big into veganism.
Yeah, I was
But
hoping that was an ice cream truck, but knowing it's a vegan truck kind of makes me less interested, but that's
yeah,
cool.
yeah, unfortunately. This was taken at Shulsein Garden. It's like this particular garden is sort of like, it's pretty close to Higashi Temple, which is the place we were previously at, but it's kind of well hidden. We actually we really like this place, not just because it was very picturesque and had some really great cherry blossoms, but it's also, it's kind of off the hidden path a little bit. Like there are not a lot of tourists don't really know that this particular place exists, so that was pretty cool. Um, Moving
You can
on.
ignore that lady in the corner? We're not going to talk about that lady in the corner?
This lady in the corner, I don't think she saw the way her eyes are looking. I don't think she really realized that I was taking a photo of her. So I don't think we need to worry about her. I don't think we need to worry about her. There are definitely a few instances during the trip where I took a photo of someone. And I was like, oh, they realized I was photographing them. That is not good, but I think we're okay here. So Kyoto is famous for a couple of its kind of ceilinged. I'm using the word ceiling, but I know that's not the proper word. I guess the more correct word would be covered. Basically, covered shopping arcades. The one you're looking at right here is Teramachi Shopping Arcade, which has all sorts of various stores that you can find in this sort of semi open aired environment. And Teramachi Shopping Arcade leads directly into Nishiki Market, which is another covered shopping arcade. It's known colloquially as Kyoto's Kitchen. It specializes in all sorts of interesting food products. You have like a lot of produce, a lot of fresh seafood, a lot of like weird pickled vegetables. There are a lot of places that will like uh, cook up like a tempura on the spot for you. A lot of knives and cookware. It's like a really cool place to visit if you're like, I want to get some really deep in the cut Kyoto kind of culinary delights.
Got a dumb question for you.
Yes.
And you wouldn't know this because you're not the fucking minister of Japan or the minister of Canada.
Whoa.
But I notice in a lot of countries, why is there English? Again, I read English, so it's prominent to me. But like the main sign on that restaurant is in English, and then they'll have, I'm assuming, the Japanese version underneath it. Why is English so prominent? Is it just for tourism? Is it that worth it having your entire Canada does the same thing? I know that people speak French and English in Canada, but why is
Mhm.
there so much emphasis on English first and then the native language second?
Like you said, I'm not the prime minister of Japan, so I can't tell you authoritatively why. I mean, it's a combination of one, like tourism is definitely a like big point of it. Like, it's a lingua franca, and so you need as much lingua franca. Is that the correct term I'm looking for? Anyways,
No idea what term you're saying.
Yeah.
it's English, very popular language, and so I think it's just convenient for them to put up as much English signage here and there and everywhere. But also, it is this thing where, like, I think for a lot of Japanese people, like, putting up English text is just very like cool and stylish. Like in the same way that you have like some American weeaboos that will put up Japanese text just because they think it looks cool, whether or not they can even understand it fully. I genuinely do think that is like a huge component of it as well.
Those big blocky letters are the sexiest ones. You're damn right.
I mean, I wouldn't know if I,
I'm talking about English. English is big blocky letters.
right. But what I'm trying to say is like, if I exclusively grew up like learning and reading and understanding Japanese text, like I don't know whether or not English blocky letters would look sexy to me. I have no clue. Moving on. This is the Kamo River, which basically cuts through Kyoto and kind of splits it into two different sides, the east side and the west side. It's a very popular, I wouldn't really call it like a tourist destination spot, but it's a place that a lot of people walk through. There are even some parts of the river where it's shallow enough that you can like straight up hop across on rocks. This isn't one of the particular spots, but you can kind of see that it's that kind of a place. So, and I thought the lighting at this particular time of day, this is later in the afternoon, made for a very good photograph. This right here is, I believe, Tenryuji Temple. This is in the west, like northwest corner of Kyoto, kind of at the very edge of the city. See, she was really happy there. She appreciated me taking a photo of her.
Well, after the 17th time, she finally got used to you just recording her randomly.
We wanted to go and visit this temple because it was like a little bit, still very touristy, lots of tourists to be found here, but still enough off the beaten path that we wouldn't be.
I want to point out, Kozi.
Yes.
That looks like it was probably the nicest day that you had out there, was it?
This particular day, I remember the thing
I don't see jackets.
I definitely was wearing a jacket a little bit later in the day. It was one of the nicer days, but I remember the temperature fluctuating a bit. That's the thing, is there were definitely days where it started out nice, it started out decent enough, and then things would get cold and rainy later on. So I don't want to say definitively that it was the best day, but it was this particular moment was definitely nice, and I'll leave it at that. This right here is the Katsura River, which is again sort of in the western corner of Kyoto near the temple that we were just visiting. We're viewing it from up above in a park that I believe is called Arashiyama Park. It's basically like the very edge of Kyoto. I thought it made for a very picturesque photograph. And this right here, Japan is known for its bamboo, and this is Arashiyama's bamboo park forest. So got some big old stalks for you to enjoy. Just big
Look at that dorky kid in the front.
Stalks.
Guy in the red and the guy in the white. Those fucking dorks.
In general, I tried not to take photos where I had other people in frame taking photographs, but it was a little hard in this particular spot because everyone was like, "Ooh, we got to take photographs with the bamboos."
Oh no, it's gorgeous. I love the way this forest looks. And then there's this dorky little 20-year-old in the front. Like, what's this kid doing down here?
Moving on. Later, I believe this evening, we decided to visit. What is this? Yes, this is Nijo Temple. No, wait, not Nijo Temple. This is actually better than a temple. This is Nijo Castle. This is a big old castle from back in the day, and they had a projection mapping nighttime light show. And so we got to see some very cool, like just old ass castle architecture with cool ass lighting projected on all of it. This particular photograph here is one of my more favorite from my collection. But what was weird about this nighttime projection mapping show is that they had a cross promotion with a movie that had actually just recently released. Do either of you want to take a stab at what movie it was?
Paddington 3.
Not Paddington 3, but you're not that far.
I'm trying to think of what movies came out when you were
early
there.
April, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like a month ago.
But Adam, you're in the right ballpark that it's like a movie That's more like a family movie with some like CGI
Sonic 3?
stuff.
Sonic?
Not Sonic 3. That would have been quite some time
That's
ago.
The
like,
Wild
yeah.
Robot.
No, not the Wild Robot. It was Disney's Snow White. So they had this one particular section where
No,
they
no, no,
had
no, 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 no,
the
no, no,
trailer
no.
from
This
Disney's
fucking
Snow
movie.
White projected on one of the buildings.
Can you go back? Can you go back one?
Yes.
I just want to take a minute and appreciate the ray tracing in this photo. Ray tracing is doing all the work here.
Dude, all those reflections, all those real-time surfaces, man, good stuff. You
Amazing.
could see the thing in the water. That's so funny that it's Disney Snow White, the Gal Gadot
Especially because that
led.
movie did terrible.
Oh, it did nothing. Yeah.
People hated that movie. It was apparently very bad.
Anyways, so a very weird moment, but let me tell you, I was not the only person videotaping this particular bit of projection mapping. Other people are like, I need to record this for posterity as well. Moving on. So on this particular day, I went to visit the Fushimi Inari Shrine. It's probably the most famous shrine in Kyoto. Basically, think of it less as like a building or like a building with a gate around it, and more as like an entire mountain that like series and series of just like shrines connected to each other by long winding roads are all a part of. And the thing that kind of connects all these particular shrines are long walkways on the mountain where you are walking through just red shrine gate after red shrine gate after gate after gate after gate. Shigeru Miyamoto and the other folks at Nintendo that helped create Star Fox basically credit the gates of the Fushimi Inari Shrine as being sort of the inspiration behind Star Fox, because the shrine itself, Fushimi Inari Shrine, it has like this fox theme to it. And so you have foxes, and in the Star Fox games, you have these gates that you occasionally kind of go through. That's basically the connection. Moving on, this is a photograph. One of the good things about the Fushimi Inari Shrine is that you have a lot of great opportunities to take photographs of Kyoto from up above, which is definitely appreciated. It's compared to Tokyo, where you have a crazy amount of crazy sky risers. Kyoto definitely a much more humble city by comparison, but it's still very much a city. I believe this would have been on our penultimate day. We actually decided to travel down and visit Nara, which of course is famous for its giant population of deer that live in Nara Park, and definitely have no fear of approaching you and trying to eat whatever it is that you have on your person.
Now, before you go,
Uh-oh.
we'll look back at this video in a second. Joel, you might have been thinking the same thing as me. If you go back to the previous photo, Kozi.
Oh,
I
well, it's
also do
just,
like how those fuckers come right up to you.
yeah, they have no fear.
Joel, is there somebody in this picture that you think looks like somebody in gaming that's very famous in the gaming world?
Well, probably that only white gentleman in the background.
Who do you think
Is
it looks
that
like?
Does it look like Pete Hines
I thought it was a
or
surprise Jeff Keighley from far away.
Jeff Keighley?
Well, again, we got to remember on
Zoomed out,
Video
but
Ninja, if you zoom out, Video Ninja's a little
yes.
lower quality. I'm like, is that Jeff Keighley standing in the park?
That would be really funny if Kozi just took a picture of somebody super famous and had no idea.
Had no idea he was there. Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, I did not see anyone famous. When I was living in Japan back in 2016, I actually got to meet, not like meet, but I high-fived Hideo Kojima because he walked out of this one venue, and I was like, hey, Kojima, high five. I didn't
Was
meet.
Jeff Keighley with him?
No. No, you know who was with him? I believe Nicholas Winding Refn, which is the Dutch director that worked on Neon Demon and that other movie.
One of his famous friends he's hanging out with.
Yes. Let's see here.
Yeah. If you see Kojima anywhere, there's always somebody else famous with him.
Oh, he
I'm
did
sure.
Drive. He did the movie Drive. I believe that was his other movie.
Okay.
Quick question: is there stuff on this deer's back?
Yeah,
or
I
is that
think
just the compression coming in? Because it looks disturbing.
Sickly.
it's not
Yes.
like you have to understand that. I think it's the natural transition of the seasons of it going from winter into spring into summer, where I think it's just undergoing a natural molting. It's not diseased or unhealthy to my understanding.
Can you get off my screen? It's
All
making
right.
me a little uneasy. I'm not gonna lie.
Okay. All right. We're moving right along.
See, in America, we kill them before it hits springtime, so we don't have to worry about the next process.
Shut up.
So this right here is actually Kyoto Station. It's the big station that we came into on our Shinkansen when we arrived in Kyoto, and also the station that we generally tended to depart from when exploring the city. The station itself, very cool and very unique building. You have this like giant, like just gigantic structure that sort of entirely kind of encircles the station. Um, on one end of the station, if you go up all these escalators over here, you end up in this like semi kind of open-ended elevated area where you can have like a bit of a nice view of the city around you. If you go all the way up on the other end, you end up in this straight up courtyard that like if you didn't know that you were up on like the 12th floor, you would just assume this is ground level. And what's really cool is in a corner of the courtyard, I don't know if you've noticed, but there's something in the corner right here of interest. It says
Lego
Lego
brick.
brick. There is a full model Lego recreation of the entire station itself, which was very cool. So this was basically, we would have been like maybe like right here or so in the building.
You know what I like is that there's locks on the bottom of that case, which means that people regularly open that thing up to mess with it.
I don't know. I
You
couldn't
look, the
tell you.
little cylinders at the bottom of the glass. Those are for keys to open it, right, Joel?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Anyways, moving right along.
They put, whenever people come in, they put their minifigs up, and then when they leave, they take them out.
Yeah.
Ooh. So that evening, we traveled to Osaka for the final kind of leg of our trip. This right here is like a pretty iconic building in the downtown Osaka area called Namba Hips. It's like a leisure building. You got a big ass pachinko parlor in here, a highball bar, karaoke stuff, sports stuff, golf stuff, body stuff, and lots
Body
of
stuff?
restaurants. That's what they, it says. What is this? I like partially like, I'm not like extensively researching every single thing that we go and visit. Let me just refer to my notes.
I mean, you said body stuff, you know?
A body studio is what it
A body
has.
studio.
Okay, I think that helps me understand what it is less than just saying body stuff.
I don't know. Anyways, me and Mama Kozi went in here because she was curious what the what is it, the pachinko parlors were like, and I'm like, I'll gladly show you, but I'm going to warn you, it feels like sitting inside of a car engine because they are very, very loud. This right here, I believe, is actually a rock climbing face, but I don't know if it's like actively used nowadays. Anyways, from there, we made our way into Osaka's Dotonbori district, which is like a very popular touristy kind of nightlife district known for its many billboards along the waterfront. Just a very, very cool place. Again, lots of people, but still well worth checking out. Much earlier in the photo presentation today, Joel, I showed off Don Quixote, shortened as just
Quixote.
Donkey, which is a very popular discount chain in Japan. This is like one of the more famous donkey buildings in all of Japan. They straight up have a Ferris wheel built into the building, but I believe that the Ferris wheel is actually, I believe it's been out of operation for some time because it was never being used while we were visiting, unfortunately. So this would have been on our first or second day in Osaka. We went to go and visit Sutenkaku Tower, which is the tower that you can see here in the distance. Now, fun fact, this is in a neighborhood in Osaka called Shinsekai. Shinsekai is a neighborhood that was built in 1912 with New York, specifically Coney Island, as a model for the southern half of the neighborhood, and Paris, France, as the model for the northern half of its neighborhood. Basically, a bunch of Japanese people are like, you know what's really cool is Coney Island and France. Let's go and make an entire neighborhood based around these two places. And I can tell you from experience, it doesn't feel like France or Coney Island.
Yeah, it looks just like buildings. It doesn't look like there's no touchstones to any of
what
that.
it looks like is a place that was maybe cool in 1912, but is pretty rundown and dilapidated nowadays. But we managed to travel up the tower. And let me tell you, the tower, pretty cool place and some pretty cool sights of the city. I believe this particular photograph, we're overlooking, I believe that's Tennoji Park. And then that skyscraper in the right hand corner is Abeno. It's called Abeno Haruka. So the names for all these buildings are totally insane. It's basically like a multi-purpose commercial facility.
So you didn't see it in that left corner. If you zoom in, there's a guy who looks like who's the guy from Gearbox that everyone hates? I think he's down there.
Is this in
Randy
this photo?
Pitchford?
Randy Pitchford's down there. Yeah, zoom in.
Yeah, Randy Pitchford. Yep,
There he is, right
yeah, he's like behind. He's like hiding in the trees. Yeah.
Anyways, and what was really cool is after
And then
Uh-oh.
if you zoom in on the right side, you could see his porn flash drive that he left at the medieval times, sitting on the ground.
Oh, there it is, right next to the giraffe.
Yeah, that's right there.
I was going to say, this is Neil Druckmann visited this zoo actually to get inspiration for the giraffes in The Last of Us. And what was cool is at the very end of this, you descended into the basement underneath the tower, and they had a Glico store. Glico is the Japanese like candy and chocolate manufacturer that makes Pocky. So this is
You know what's so funny? I haven't bought
Pocky
Pockies in 10 years, and I literally bought some 2 days ago when I was at work.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Wowie. This is in front of a hotel in the Dotonbori district from a little bit earlier called Dotonbori Hotel. We did not stay here. We stayed in another hotel. But I just thought the facade was very funny. Very weird. Let's see here. This was one of the latter days of our trip in Osaka. We went to visit, this is Osaka Castle Park. So this is the park itself, and you can kind of see Osaka Castle right up in the distance. Are there any more celebrities or game developers that we can spot in this photo?
The guy over there on the left in the blue shirt, I'm pretty sure is Cliff Blazinski.
Well, this guy over here, I didn't know that Cliff Blazinski has 2 Asian children.
You don't know about him very well. You don't look in on him that much.
Osaka Castle. This place, like, absolutely massive, and there are like multiple basically moats, like ringed moats that kind of surround the entire complex. And this is a view of the castle from a little bit more close by, as you can see right here.
That looks cool.
Yeah. What was cool about our trip is we kind of tried to time it out so that we could like get to enjoy the cherry blossoms like as much as possible during the first part of the trip when we were in Tokyo. But because the weather was a little bit cold and clammy, it meant that the blossoms were a little bit slow to bloom in Tokyo. But then throughout the rest of the trip, when we were in Kyoto and Osaka, the blossoms were still in bloom. So we kind of got to enjoy it the entire trip, which was very cool. Here we go, Joel.
Costco.
You asked about it. I, of course,
we're here.
Got to visit Costco when I was living in Japan. Let me tell you, it was pretty difficult to get to visit a Costco because all of the Costcos in all of the major cities in Japan that I visited, Tokyo, Osaka, Kyoto, located like a fair bit outside of the cities themselves. I guess because, Costcos are these like just large warehouses. I'd imagine that maybe like in terms of square footage, they're probably pretty expensive to set up in those cities. So for this particular Costco, I had to travel like 45 minutes outside of Osaka to a nearby city called, what was the city called? Going through my notes. This was in Nagasaki, which is northwest outside of Osaka.
Quick question for you.
Yes.
You said 45 minutes outside of where you were staying, right?
Yes.
How did you get there?
I took the train.
You took a train.
Yeah.
Joel, tell me if this sounds familiar. I'm going to take a train to the store in a city that I've never been in before. Tell me that isn't just the Kozi store. He did this in Boston as well, is what
I mean, that's exactly what he did.
With regards to the whole train situation, I mean, I will say, felt much safer, much more confident in me being able to get to my destination on these Japanese trains than I felt in that Boston situation.
Oh, you got a problem with Boston trains, huh? Oh, shit.
So Costco, a lot of the food products that Japanese Costco sell, aren't necessarily that much different from what you have in North America, but you do have some pretty cool stuff like these giant sushi combo plates, which I believe that if you were to convert this to Canadian dollars, this is about $37 Canadian for that entire platter, which is, I'd imagine that probably works out to a very good price in US dollars
It's
as
like
well.
$25 American, probably. Yeah.
Yeah.
They sell sushi at my Costco, but not like this elaborate. Like this looks
Yeah.
like a huge variety.
Yeah. Let me get a California roll real quick. That's that's all I'm
Yeah,
getting there.
yeah.
I didn't buy any of the things that were in the store proper, but I did go to the hot food counter to see what they had. Now, earlier, Joel, you referenced the clam chowder and the Aussie pies. They did have the clam
Yeah.
chowder, but I didn't get that. They didn't have the Aussie pies. What they did have was a jumbo bulgogi bake and
That
an
looks
entire
delicious.
salmon poke roll. Both of them, I'm telling you, Joel, I made a point on this particular day of not eating that much in the lead up to me going to Costco because I knew I was going to just gorge like hell on the food that Costco had to offer. And it was absolutely delicious.
Oh
Both
my.
things so good, so incredibly good.
Bulgogi is a Korean beef. So it's marinated slices of beef grilled on barbecue. So it's Korean beef barbecue, basically. So that
Yeah.
sounds good as fuck.
And then from there, this was, we're entering into basically the final phase of the trip. A kind of big thing that my mom wanted us to visit was Osaka's Expo 2025, which is basically the like the latest iteration of the kind of world's fairs that happen in countries around the world every few years. On this particular day, this was actually opening day for the World's Fair. Originally, we were thinking, oh, we'll just go visit the World's Fair maybe on our final day of the trip. But my mom was like, no, I want to spend as much time as we possibly can. And the only 2 days where the expo is going to be open is on our final 2 days of the trip. So we went on our second to last day, which was the opening day for the expo. Let me tell you, we were waiting a long time in just like the coldest, windiest, rainiest weather you could possibly imagine. I think it was like a 3 hour wait to get in. It was tough. One person that we met along us in the line was just like, fuck this, and it ended up leaving. But we eventually managed to get in. We got some big old photo bombs here. Thankfully, they're not looking at the camera, though, so I think we're okay. This wooden structure that you see in front of you basically it's called the Grand Ring. And what it is it's basically the single largest wooden structure in the entire world. It's 12 meters high with a circumference of 2 kilometers. And it's great because basically you can like walk underneath the Grand Ring, or you could like walk up above it and get a good kind of view of both the rest of the expo and also, I guess, things outside of the expo as well. This is a view of what the Grand Ring looks like at night. It was very, very, very nicely lit up as well. And this is basically what it looked like to walk through the Grand Ring. Now, I got to see a lot of pavilions when
Canada.
got to see a lot of pavilions when I was at Expo 2025. We would be spending a long time if I went through literally every single pavilion. So I'm just going to kind of do a couple of the highlights. This is the Canada Pavilion, which is one of the few pavilions. Basically, they had this lottery system for the expo where, like, either you would have to wait in line for certain pavilions, or if you won a lottery that you could apply for online ahead of time, you could potentially skip the line. And this is one of the few pavilions that we actually won the lottery for. So we ended up going in very quickly. This is just a better view of the pavilion at night, just kind of give you an example of what it looked like. Very interesting that they chose to like depict Canada as being like a very icebergy and icy country, because certainly we get a lot of snow, but it's not really like that all the time. Um, this particular pavilion had an interesting concept going with it. Basically, they had all these like giant sculptures of icebergs, and they gave you these like iPads that had this AR mode going on with them. You would point the iPads at the icebergs, and it would reveal like a little idyllic scene of life in the Canadian countryside. Again, not very I guess realistic to the typical Canadian living experience, but I thought it was pretty neat. This is the Austria Pavilion. They have a very musical theming going on here because of all the musicians that are from Austria. The inside of the building talked a lot about the musicians and their
I thought it was a fruit roll up.
exploits and whatnot. It does kind of look like a fruit roll up. It kind of does. This is the China Pavilion. It was one of the bigger pavilions in the expo. Um, some interesting stuff in here, but also there were some AI exhibits, which was a bit of a theming with some of these pavilions as well. So thing is like not every single country in the world had their own entire pavilion dedicated to them. There were some smaller countries here and there that basically were located inside of these common buildings and basically like had just like a smaller sized booth where they could talk a little bit about what they had to offer, what their country is like. Um, I was very curious about this because of recent world events, and so I went to go and visit the Palestine Pavilion. And this is, there's no goofs or guffaws to be had here, but the Palestine Pavilion, they actually had a bunch of display cases that were supposed to show a bunch of artifacts or objects of cultural significance to their land. And apparently, the organizers of the event have claimed that basically the shipment of said objects were delayed by the Israeli authorities that were preventing them from being brought into Japan. And
Well,
so
that's a statement to make. Be like, yo, guys, there's a reason. Hey, I don't blame them.
yeah, so not fun, unfortunately. I didn't come here on the following day to see if they had finally managed to get the objects in, but I'd imagine that they probably still haven't had much success in that regard. This was the Singapore Pavilion.
Death Star.
Yeah, kind of looks like the Death Star, to be honest. This particular one, there were like a bunch of like, there's like a monochromatic forest, and it culminated in basically like a video presentation that was about like the hopes and dreams of all of the visitors to the pavilion. The thing about a lot of these pavilions is they weren't necessarily always great places to learn about the countries in question that they pertain to. A lot of them were these more experiential things like the Canadian pavilion that we kind of saw earlier. And it's definitely, I would slot kind of into that particular group. This is the Italy pavilion, or the Italia pavilion, as they title it on the side. This one actually had some like pretty cool and interesting like artifacts and things from what was it? They had like, I want to say they had like a few pieces of pages of the manuscript that Leonardo da Vinci maintained. I forget the name of the manuscript, but they had like a couple of cool like artifacts like that where it's like, oh, this is actually pretty neat.
Oh, Ezio's Playthings, I think is the name of that
Yeah.
particular book.
Ezio Auditore's, Ubisoft checklist logbook. This is the America Pavilion. I was very tempted to just show a piece of like a picture of like a garbage can for this particular one, but I figured I might as well show what it actually looked like. I didn't visit this particular pavilion. I found it very ironic that the pavilion shows a bunch of pictures of the globe, and it's like, yeah, but you're picking a fight with all those countries that you're showing on those projection screens.
America is the world, is what they're trying to say here. It's also the biggest one. There's also nothing there.
This is on day 2 of our time at the expo. On this particular day, it only took us 45 minutes to get into the expo. So we got in much faster and we had much more time to do things. The weather was also, at least initially, much better. So we didn't have to huddle in the rain for too long. This particular video that I'm taking right here, it's not necessarily my favorite video because it doesn't do necessarily a great job of showing off the expo as a whole, but I feel like it does give kind of a good job of just showing off what walking on the ring was like. As you can see, there's actually like an upper level where you could walk a little bit higher than everyone else if you should so choose. So that was pretty cool. So speaking of countries that are currently embroiled in conflicts, this is the pavilion for Ukraine. I was really kind of impressed with this booth just from the perspective of, I visited this would have been April 14th, I believe. At this point in time, the whole like not for sale stuff had like kind of just popped off. And so I was kind of impressed that like they were able to basically put the not for sale stuff together this fast in the booth. Conceptually, it was sort of interesting. Basically, the whole kind of concept for the booth was kind of like a warped IKEA showroom where you had like a bunch of things for sale that had tags on them, like right to participate in cultural life. And they actually gave you these scanners that you could actually use to scan the tags on the objects, and it would reveal like a little bit more information on the objects themselves. Definitely very, very different than a lot of the other booster pavilions I visited, because this one is basically straightforwardly like, hey, things in the Ukraine right now are really not great. Like, we're not going to try to dress up our country and say that it's a fantastic place to visit right now. So instead, we're going to really hammer home the political reality of what's happening here. And I thought it was a pretty effective message. This was
The
at
one black man in Japan.
there were a few. He wasn't the only one, but this one I remembered him very well. He was at the Fiji booth. Most of these booths, most of these pavilions, usually the people that work there aren't really coming up to you and asking you how you're doing or really kind of showing off too much about the country in question. But this particular man actually came and like showed off some cool stuff and talked a little bit about Fiji. He let me hold a couple of artifacts and objects. This is a war. I think calling it a war hammer isn't really accurate. I guess you would just say like an instrument of war. And he also allowed me to hold this. Do you want to take a stab at what you think this is?
Joel?
RPG missile. Ancient
It's a
RPG
fishing
missile.
tool.
It is, you got a little close. It's actually a fork. Basically, it's used
Big
for
fork.
when you cook like a big old pig and you want to like just tear off chunks of meat from it. You use this big old Fijian fork.
But if you put them together, they do look like the RPG propelled thing. Absolutely.
That's true. It's going to be in the next Far Cry game. This was the Malaysia Pavilion. Exhibits in the Malaysia Pavilion itself were fine. Nothing super duper to write home about. However, when we got to the very end of the pavilion's exhibits, there was like a little cafeteria area. And there was this one particular chef preparing dough. I don't know what the dough would have been used for, but he started just doing wizardry with his hands with the dough. And I think myself and many people were transfixed by it. This is like, eventually I will have to skip ahead because we can't watch this whole video, but I took like 2 like minute long videos because I was just so bedazzled by his skills.
Yeah, were they even making anything, or is he just like, I'm going to spit some dough for fun, and then we're going to just get rid of it?
No, they were definitely making something. Like, it was a legitimate restaurant. I wouldn't be able to tell you.
That's not even dough. That's just like a tablecloth. That's just that size.
Honestly, maybe we were hoodwinked by this miraculous dough man. Moving on. So, this was... I knew that you guys would like this one. This is at the Seychelles booth. Seychelles, a kind of small island nation. This is the largest nut in the world. It goes by a few different names, but the one name that it goes by is the coco de mer. It is basically endemic to the Seychelles and is very, very rarely eaten. It's one of those things where it's like very protected because it's very rare, and so people don't really handle it around a whole lot. But I got to hold up a replica, which was very fun.
I just don't know what kind of tree comes out of that. You know what I'm saying?
It's it's a palm tree. It's a big old palm tree.
I'm sorry, are they bigger than normal palm trees? Because that's a big old nut. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, I would imagine it's about as big as like the same kind of tree that produces a coconut, because it's not like it's that much bigger than like
That's about double the size of coconut.
It is pretty big. Anyways. This is the Kuwait pavilion. I was actually very impressed with this particular pavilion. Kuwait's one of those countries from like, I don't really know a whole lot about this particular place, and I thought the pavilion did a pretty good job. Of course, a big focus of the pavilion was talking about, its oil production history, the Gulf War, things of that particular nature. But I walked out of this pavilion being like, Kuwait, not a bad country. Might want to visit it at some point. This is the Turkmenistan pavilion. This is sort of on the opposite spectrum of things. Turkmenistan, I did not realize before walking to this pavilion, is rated like number 98 on like the freedom index. Like it is like, I think slightly lower than North Korea, if that's somehow possible. With a lot of these pavilions, I was like, I just need to like keep out of the rain, because by this particular point in the day, it had started to rain a little bit. And so I would just walk into whichever pavilion was freely available and didn't have too much of a lineup to get in. Yeah, this is a weird experience. It was one of the only pavilions in the entire expo that didn't have English or Japanese translations of any of its exhibits. And so you have all this stuff that's entirely in Turkmen, which I believe is the language over there. And it's like, I don't understand what any of this is about. Apparently, this country really loves dogs and horses and possibly camels. This is the UK pavilion. This one had like a fun little exhibit about a girl and her father that are learning about the UK and its sort of history of inventions. Also, unfortunately, some AI footage, which wasn't so great. And finally, to cap things out, I took one final panoramic video of the expo from on top of the Grand Ring. This time I got a bit of a better perspective of the expo's many pavilions. Just going to give you an example of what it looked like.
It looks like it was pretty huge.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. It was very, very huge. Unfortunately, uh, I believe that along with most of the pavilion buildings themselves, the Grand Ring will be, I believe, demolished when the expo comes to an end in October of this year, which is too bad because it's a
That's crazy.
very cool place. Yeah, this I believe so. This the whole expo was hosted on an artificial island in the Bay of Osaka, and I believe that after the expo closes, this island will host Osaka's first ever casino. So yeah, certainly an interesting transition to be had there. That was basically the end of the trip, but I have a few final last minute thingamabobs. Number one, this was something that we passed by on our trip to the airport at the very end of the trip. This was Namba Yasaka Shrine. Shaped like it's supposed to be a giant lion's head, but it's green. It was built in 1975, and it's a pretty unique and popular kind of little tourist destination. And then for the final part of my little photo exploration of Japan, I just wanted to highlight a couple of my favorite snacks, favorite foods that I had when I was living in Japan.
Costco.
Well, Costco, I mean, we had an entire section to Costco. Costco, I mean, is by default number one. But also, we're talking about this is Pocari Sweat. This is an energy. No, it's more like I would put it. Sorry, I got a burpee there. I would put this more in like the realm of like Gatorade. Basically, it's basically their Gatorade. It's actually, I believe, grapefruit flavored, but it's actually very good.
We call that Propel in America.
It says right here at the bottom, Pocari Sweat is a healthy beverage that smoothly supplies the lost water and electrolytes during perspiration. With the approximate density and electrolytes close to that of human body fluid, it can be easily absorbed into the body.
Being easily absorbed makes it sound like you can just rub it all over your skin, and it does the same thing as drinking it.
This stuff
Also,
was fantastic.
my guess would have been that this was thick water. Have you ever heard of thick water?
Thick water?
No, tell me about it.
Thick water is basically water, but thick. And it's a real thing, and it looks disgusting.
So
it's like
fluids.
intended.
Oh yeah,
yeah. It's like intended for people who supposedly cannot swallow liquids. Like they struggle swallowing liquids, so it's
it makes
like
it more
thicker
like a tapioca.
Yeah, like Jello water.
It looks disgusting. It looks disgusting.
It's nasty.
Next up on my list of favorite snacks, this is takoyaki.
Ooh,
so these
good.
are basically they're little like dough balls that have like a little piece of octopus at the center of them, and they're usually covered in all sorts of interesting toppings. These two things that takoyaki had, I think you have a little bit of egg scramble on the left, and then on the right you had, I believe that was a mixture of Kewpie mayonnaise and some other dressing. I forget now what it was exactly, but it was very tasty. This particular dish it's considered like an Osaka delicacy. Like it's one of the foods that people in Osaka really kind of swear by as being one of their great foods. But I actually had these in Tokyo because it's kind of like a national food that you can get anywhere in the country if you really want to. So you might remember this one from Metal Gear Solid 3, Adam. This is Calorie Mate, which is basically, it's kind of like if you like took like a gingerbread, gingerbread, no, not gingerbread, a
Granola bar.
shortbread. It's like if you took a shortbread cookie and made it kind of sad and more caloric. These things, I wouldn't exactly call them my favorite snack, but I always enjoyed just taking their boxes out of the food aisle and just examining them because I just find that there's something very, I don't know, something about them where I'm like, I just kind of love the aesthetic design of this, how simultaneously simple and like a little bit overly wordy it is. Calorie Mate Block contains a nutritionally balanced source of the energy needed for daily activities. Calorie Mate Block is great for people who are always on the go, needing an easy way of consuming energy and nutrition, whether it is for breakfast, work, sports, study, or any busy time. And finally, I want to talk a little bit about this thing right here. So this is, I'm struggling to kind of like put into words exactly what this is like. It's basically like, think like an almond Florentine cake, but with like a very kind of like chewy, almost sort of crispy cover. And then like the underneath it is more like just like a standard sheet cake. This thing is thebomb.com, to borrow a bit of parlance from earlier on in the years of the podcast. This thing is like so incredibly good. If you ever are in Japan, you need to find a grocery store that sells these things because these things are incredibly tasty and just some of the favorite snacks that I had during my entire trip to Japan. And that is the end of my photo tour of Japan. Thank you so much, guys, for letting me indulge in this. This was it was quite the trip. I'm sad that it's over, but I'm certain there will be more opportunities in the future. I've been wanting to go back for many, many years. In fact, early on, the plans were to go in 2020 before the pandemic reared its head, but and the pandemic reared its head and we had to postpone things. And I'm glad that we finally were able to make this particular trip work.
Yeah, I really want to go to Japan one day. Like that's on my bucket list of places to go. Um, I just think the culture there is really cool. Like I want to go into like retro game stores and check out like, old Japanese Game Boys that are, $20 because there's way more of them over there than they are here. Just weird stuff like that. Find like cheap copies of Japanese Game Boy games and PS1 games. Yeah.
And what's great is, and like obviously I won't spend too much time talking about video games because that's not the purpose of this podcast.
Not
Adam, don't
allowed
close
to.
the show.
Not allowed to.
Like obviously you should definitely visit Tokyo at some point, and Tokyo has Akihabara, which is sort of like a mecca for that kind of stuff. But like even Osaka has like its entire own dedicated neighborhood to that kind of stuff. Osaka's like Nipponbashi Denden Town is a fantastic place to look for and purchase old retro video games and all that sort of stuff. And so like no matter where you go in the country, you will find your needs fulfilled in that regard. Even if you're not near Osaka or Tokyo, there are giant stores like Book Off, for example. Book Off is a chain I talked a little bit about in episode 392, a store entirely devoted to like primarily books, but also like just all sorts of video game and nerd crap, where you can find like great quality secondhand stuff. And again, these stores are located in Kyoto, in all these sorts of cities that are kind of well outside of the kind of main urban centers. So no matter where you go, you'll be set.
Cool.
And I think
No doubt.
that's the end of the show.
All right. Yeah. Sorry, Joel. It looks like we're running out of time. We will talk about the 7 weddings you've been to
3.
next time we get on the. It'll be 7 by the time we get there. You know what I'm saying? Good Lord, it's crazy. But thank you, Kozi, and thanks everyone for listening to Rafter Dark podcast. I also don't know how Chad ends these. I've also been drinking. Dude, let me tell you, I started with a full bottle. How much is in this bottle now? Give me a guess.
That's a different bottle. It's
Nope.
got to be.
This is the same bottle, baby.
Wow.
I couldn't even say the word right. But yeah, thanks for listening to the show. Thanks, Patreon. .com, respawn name fire, $1, you'll get it. Anything else? Any closing words? Final statements?
Japan's real cool. Go and visit. It's a fun
Joel?
time.
I got nothing. Stay tuned for my wedding stories in the future.
Cool. Goodbye.
Goodbye.